that, do we have to have some more funding to make that $70 million project happen? Allegan County put in $17.7 million of their own ARPA money. 123.net's gonna put in $17.7 million of their own capital, and we need about another $35 million in funding. And we're hoping to get that in the first round. If we don't get it in the first round of funding, we're almost guaranteed to get it in the second round of funding. But in the first round of funding, the grant process that has to be gone through is through the MyHigh office, which is the Michigan Internet High-Speed office. And an email was sent out to all the various jurisdictions with a resolution just supporting that position on 123.net going after that grant. And I'd like you guys to consider putting that on the agenda for your meeting tonight, because that's due by the first part of March. And that resolution just states that as a jurisdiction, you're supporting the partnership between the county and 123.net. And that will help move our point scale up higher with that grant process. So hopefully you got that email from Jill Dunham, the project manager. Any questions on that portion of it?
We do have it on our regular meeting
Okay, I
agenda
was flipping
already.
through, I didn't even see it.
Yep, it's
I'm
on
sorry
there,
I got here
Scott,
late.
so, yeah.
Okay,
Michaela or Joel was on that, so.
okay. And then the other 2 points I wanted to make about, for the county, all the various boards and commissions for the county, when I say boards, like Commission on Aging, Broadband Internet, Solid Waste, none of the, or most of those were not getting any per diem or mileage for the volunteers. In January, we passed that they're gonna get per diem and mileage for the volunteers. So somebody like myself as a commissioner that's already getting paid, I will not get that per diem. But somebody that is volunteering to be on one of those commissions will get $50 per diem and paid mileage to those meetings. So I think that's pretty huge, because so many of those committees have vacancies because nobody wants to take the time to do it. And then lastly, all our meetings are recorded and put on YouTube, and the retention period for those meetings, or those videos, was doubled. It was only 3 months, and now we went to 6 months, so people have longer time to take a look at those meetings, and if they need to or want to, they can download them. But at least it went to 6 months. I was hoping to get longer than that, but that's what we ended up with, 6 months. So, any questions for anything from the county that I can try to answer? Okay,
No.
thank you.
Thank you,
Have a great night.
Scott. You too. Any more public comment? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on down to the roundtable discussion amongst council members. Does anybody have anything that they'd like to talk about tonight? Okay, Delora, go ahead, please.
Thank you. First thing I wanted to mention is on our regular agenda this evening, Elizabeth Decot is on for her request about chickens. I think we all had received that email with that request, and I have spoken with her, and I know this came up actually when we were doing our ordinance review, and one of the issues that we found in that group was that our animal ordinance is kind of contradictory to our zoning ordinance. So the animal ordinance talked about fowl and chickens just not being able to run loose. So it says, like, no person shall permit any dog or other domestic, including chickens and other fowl, so it actually calls out chickens. But then our zoning ordinance says that no animals, livestock, or fowls are allowed in the city. So that was something that we had talked about. I was really in support of having chickens in the city, and I just thought that it might be good to talk about that before Lizzie comes in, or Elizabeth is her full name, so we can have an idea of what we think about as a council, and maybe have some direction for staff if that's something we would want them to look into.
So do we, go ahead, Bill.
You know, it all comes down to ordinance enforcement, again. We have chickens roaming loose now in the city, and nobody does anything about it. You know, that's my big thing, is get these ordinances and let's stick to them and get them taken care of and whatever, they need to be enforced. I have no problem with the chicken ordinance, the way that this lady wants to do it, whatsoever. I think it's needed, I think. And if Holland says it's okay, you know,
So I think what you're saying here, Delora, we need to make a decision either on the ordinance or the ordinance or the zoning, I mean, because it contradicts itself.
Well, they do contradict themselves, so, I mean, it's really a good time to be having this conversation since we are redoing the ordinances and we'll need to.
can it be changed over in your ordinance that you're redoing?
And I can't remember, Peter or Mike, do you remember the direction that we took with that? Did we leave it as it was?
I thought we were gonna change the chicken ordinance.
I know we talked about it, but I don't remember what the direction, the final direction
was
was.
whether we wanted to pull it out of zoning and put it straight into ordinance or leave it in zoning. Because that becomes part of the problem for Jay to enforce, is if there's not an ordinance and if it's in zoning, then it's a whole nother thing to go look at. Where zoning really, I think, should pertain to like the planning and building of, if you're gonna build, this is your offsets, this is what you can build, this is how you can build.
Yeah, I
It was always kind of an odd thing that it was in zoning. I think we talked of probably pulling it out of zoning and putting it into an ordinance, but I'm for looking into it and coming up with reasonable rules. I.e. like, I think we talked about like how far, if they were gonna have chickens, they had to be from property lines or neighboring structures, how many they could have, if they could have roosters or not. These are all questions that need to be addressed in it and not just quickly change. We need
Right.
to look at that because some neighbors might not be very happy with a rooster next door crowing.
And I actually spoke to her about roosters when I talked to her. I said, my recommendation would be that we do not allow roosters in the city. And she said that she and her husband, who will both be here later this evening, are in agreement with that. She mentioned that she's gonna bring like 4 ordinances from other cities about chickens for us to kind of review. But like I said, I know it's, when somebody comes in for a presentation, we don't always have a really good discussion at that time about it. So kind of wanted to see where people were at in their thoughts. So at least we can, say we're kind of in support or no, or not in support at this time, or.
Well, I actually liked what she had to say, or how she brought in just where we're at, and that it's, similar to allowing people to have gardens and be able to feed themselves, which I think is important, and I think it's a good thing to be able to have that ability to provide. Now, I also know that my neighbors used to have ducks, and they were a bit of a pain, but, we kind of learned to live with it, and you work with your neighbor.
No geese.
And we have other,
Well, and
we have other friends who own chickens and ducks as well. May or may not be in the city as well. But I would be in support. I think we need to make sure that we think
Hone it
it
down.
through,
Yep.
yeah.
Yep.
But,
And I agree with what Bill said, we have geese, his yard is full.
Those are wild
We
geese.
have 30 or plus turkeys that come through the yard almost every day. So I realize they're not anybody's pets or anybody, but I don't see anything wrong with the chickens in the city as
What,
long as we,
What do we need to do to figure out what we can do with our ordinance for chickens and ducks and
I think it could go back to
domesticated
Our-
geese?
planning on the ordinance planning to go review these and look, if the rest of council is kind of in agreement that we want to look at this, and then we can review it, come back with something that we think would work. If anybody has any ideas on it, I think part of it is you have to consider like overall property size, how much the yard size is, how much the chicken coop's gonna take up of the yard size, because if she says 80 square feet, but you're in a R1 and you don't have a yard that's only 100 square feet, you gotta look at this to be like, in proportion to the property you have, this is maybe what you could have.
Can I just see a show of hands of the council members that want people to raise chickens in the backyards? Okay.
What'd you say?
Are you in favor of chickens in backyards? I think there's a majority of you that want, unanimous, okay. Staff can work on an ordinance. I did this ordinance and,
You need to get a hold of a lawyer to figure
Nope,
out what we
nope.
can do as far as whether it should be in the planning commission or.
yeah, so I did a similar ordinance in Holland. I was the lone against the ordinance the whole time. As someone who actually lived in the central neighborhoods, tight. Oh, I do not have a good poker face at all. But yeah, you talk about structures, I would heavily encourage you, no roosters. Code enforcement happened at 6 a.m. when a neighbor called about someone with a rooster, and we'd have to go out in that general neighborhood and try to triangulate with our ears. Do you hear the rooster and try to find, but we can't go on people's private property without a search warrant. So there is a heavy, another level. We, lack of a better phrase, had chickens removed from 1 or 2 properties last year. 2 properties last year, they were selling eggs at the street. I don't think you want to, I don't know, maybe you want people to be able to sell their eggs and have farm, there's a right to farm act in the state of Michigan. You really can't stop vegetable stands in the state of Michigan. I don't know if eggs fall under that or not. There's a whole education process. People don't realize chickens stop laying eggs after a couple years, and we'd ask the family, how are you going to dispose of the chicken? And they go, what do you mean? And they didn't know that the chickens that they got at Tractor Supply stopped laying eggs after a couple years. And we're like, yeah, you have to end that chicken's life. And the horrified look on the mom's face when she heard those phrases, she goes, really? We're like, yeah.
Or you can just let it live out its life.
You could also do that, but then you have chickens competing for space when if your purpose is to, feed your family off eggs. So there's hundreds, if not thousands, of ordinances, on, urban chickens and how to do it. So if you guys are supportive of it, we can, start that process now and figure it out. And I would agree, make it an administrative ordinance, which would be in our Code of Ordinances and not a zoning ordinance.
I agree with
That would be my recommendation, so. But if you guys are supportive of something like that, I don't believe I was copied on this email, so I'm not sure what ordinances she shared of other communities, but.
It was Holland, actually. She shared like from Holland, but
from
then
what-
when I spoke
Okay.
with her, she said tonight she's gonna bring
Yeah.
like 4 other ordinances. But this is pretty clear about like 5 feet in the rear
Yeah.
adjacent to property lines.
What we bring
It's-
you hopefully would something not be like Holland, because that was administratively heavy. And Holland has 4 or 5 full-time code, enforcement officers. We have 0. Thank you, Parker.
No kidding.
So that is, so we're gonna have to develop something that's designed for small towns and, very lean organizations, not a heavy organization like some of the more urban cities like Grand Rapids and Holland and Flint and Detroit and so forth.
So we can't get a service like Rooster Spotter, similar to Shot Spotter, that can
Yeah.
pinpoint where the rooster's at?
You pretty much, yeah, we'll look into that, okay? Thank you for the levity of it, but yeah, I lost this argument 10 years ago, and I'm willing to not even engage in an argument right now.
Well, thank you guys for discussing it. I was hopeful we could have some sort of a direction, so when she's here, we can, engage a little bit.
And you will have someone coming in about 3 months later asking for bees, because that's what happened in Holland. Once the chickens got approved, it was amazing how many bee enthusiasts popped up in the city, in hives and stuff like that.
So I'll be in favor of that.
Yeah. And we have all the articles about pollen being deposited on cars and how pollen destroys a paint on a car. And is it fair for neighbors to be next to a beehive?
I'm not a beehive person.
They have bees in Holland now, too.
Without these, we don't need.
There's a place for them. Okay, Laura, did you have anything else?
The other thing was just the email that Joel had sent this afternoon regarding the HDC recommendation. Not sure if everybody had the opportunity to review that, but thought it would probably be good to discuss yet again.
Again, a year, 5 years later.
I'll be honest, I'm fully in support of this latest recommendation. Having gone through the city pretty recently, both by car and walking, and looking at some of the homes in the districts, I know I'm not an architect, but I wasn't really able to find any cohesive architecture, materials, anything like that, that would make it easy to designate. I know, Dave, you've brought up a lot, like, what is it that we're trying to preserve in these districts? And it's for me, I couldn't like really pinpoint, you know, something. So I guess in my mind, it's almost easier to start from scratch than to go through every 400-plus home in the community and take them out. But that's, so I was in support of their latest recommendation.
I felt like Eddie's latest letter was, I thought it was just accurately portrayed what I saw from HDC in our last meeting, where they are just tired and I think discouraged, and that we should acquiesce to their request and follow their guidance in this last letter. I don't see a good way forward. I know Dave and I have had some discussions, and I think that there's pros and cons to everything, but I just don't know that there is enough energy to accomplish it. I mean, obviously, it sounds like there's not, because the three people who came are saying we should not do this anymore. I don't know, what are your thoughts, Dave?
Personally, I don't want to be the community that says we don't care about history. I do not want to be there. I do not think they're pulling up their boots and taking care of the situation. What I heard from that meeting, I was not attending to it, I was ill, but I watched it. I heard them say that basically you could keep it the way that we're doing it now, that you have ones that are, I don't know the wording he was using, compliant, or ones that are really, pardon me? Contributing, and then non-contributing. You could have both of those. We've already got that on our books, which ones are contributing and which ones are non-contributing. So what's the need of destroying it when you've got that already there? Just because somebody doesn't want to have a meeting once a month to say, okay, well, you can do that now.
I'm not sure we do have it on the books of what's contributing and what's not, and we have such a huge.
You have little bit asterisks and everything else and all these properties that are up and down
But
through there.
when we looked through those on that night, I think it was agreed that that was a very outdated list, and that
How
would
can it
have
be
to-
outdated?
'cause it was done.
It's either
in
historical or it's not historical.
Well, over the last 30
I
years,
mean,
things have
the
changed.
Civil War was the Civil War. That didn't get outdated. These aren't outdated either, Roger.
Some of the houses that had some historical significance have not been maintained in a way that keeps that historical significance, I think was the.
And that's
their
the commission or the committee's fault
Well,
for
it's-
allowing things to be done to it that are not. So it's all a whole, you got too many other problems besides just getting rid of getting rid of the committee.
Mm-hmm.
The committee has a purpose, and that purpose is to retain a history.
Well, I think when you said, I don't want to be the city that says we don't care about history, I don't think that that's what this is saying.
And what are you telling everybody then?
Well, I think we're
That you
saying
don't
that
care
the
about it? Go ahead and do what you
historic
wanna do to it?
district that the historic district is not working. I mean, we have over 400 buildings listed that, most of which have no historical significance.
Well, then, those should be non-contributing. It's a real simple thing to say that they're non-contributing.
Yeah, except we don't have people that want to put the work in anymore.
And I guess for me, Bill, I see like this is an opportunity, if the committee or the community wants to, is to just start from scratch. I'm not saying get rid of the entire thing, but if there are certain buildings that the community feels should be kept in a historic district, we can always create another one. But to me, it's easier to
So
start anew than to
why
take
kick one
everything.
out and then have to
Really,
redo
like,
the whole thing
reform.
again?
Because then you can kind of just, okay, so like the Pritchard home or, you know, the Jade Estates, those houses that are really known throughout town to have that historical significance. Like, my house has 0 anymore.
Correct, you're being non-contributing.
Yeah, but then they have to go through every home and figure that out. You know, and to take them out or to decide whether they're
But if you
contributing or not.
destroy it and you want to start it up again, you've got to do that same process, Dora.
Well, I don't
You've
think you
got to
have
go through and say,
all-
okay, well, this one's gonna be contributing in this section, this one is not. You're doing the same thing over again.
Are there certain like properties that you feel are historical in nature and that should be part of a district?
Yeah,
Like Pritchard Estate or,
Correct.
you know, Winchester Inn?
Joel's home, that whole area down in there. So, Joel.
That's okay. My house does have a fake facade. It has plastic window trim and plastic door trim. It's not original, and the pillars are also not original. They're fluted. They should be solid cylinders. But yes, other than that, my house is very historical. Thank you.
I know it. Those were things that were done to your home, Joel, that should not have been allowed. They were, and that's nobody's fault except for the historical committee's fault for allowing it.
People can't fix it.
That's the thing right there. There's a historical home that's been destroyed. And you're gonna allow this to go on, so, I mean, like I said, I'm not for that whatsoever.
Mike, what was your take from HTC?
In that meeting, it seemed like they didn't want to even approach looking for an answer. They were like, we gave them a recommendation, and that didn't work, and so we're just done then. And I was a no against going that route, but one doesn't change it.
It all has to do with, all of our ordinances that we have there, we don't take care of them. None of them, whether it's historical ordinances or whether it's junk and trash laying around our community, we don't take care of them. That's what needs to be addressed.
But I think in the historic part of it is, it was a group of X number of people making those decisions, hence why we have Joel's home or the old Perigo home that has lost that historic,
How do you get it
Look.
back? You don't.
No.
That's why I said I don't want to be the community to wreck history. You can't get it back.
Yeah, Bill, I hear what you're saying, and you're exactly right. To eliminate it and start from scratch, it's not that broken where it can't be adjusted.
yeah, I think it is, but, go ahead, I'm sorry.
To me, you've had on that historical district, people that live in the historic district that want to do whatever they want to do to their thing, so therefore they allow that to go on. I don't think that's right either.
Well, and I think that's part of the problem. It's been so wishy-washy on who can do what. And I think that is what has created where we're at today. It's
Enforcement.
not been standard across the board. And what I heard from that meeting was, particularly those three people that were here, not counting Mike, was they no longer want to put any effort into it.
One of the other issues when we're talking about enforcement is that when we did have strong enforcement, what we ended up with was houses that became dilapidated and unkempt because the people who lived there couldn't afford to do it the way the HDC told them they had to do it, so they didn't do anything.
Were those homes that were contributing or non-contributing?
Well, you keep
See,
throwing those
that's where you
terms
come
out.
through, Roger, that it's either contributing or non-contributing.
So
If you live in
they
a house
become
that's
non-contributing
non-contributing,
because
you can
they're
do whatever
falling
you want
apart.
to it.
We had contributing homes that became non-contributing because they got left to
That's what's
decay
happened now.
because they couldn't afford to keep up the way the HDC said they had to do it. That's part of the problem, Bill.
I don't think so. You name
It
me-
is.
What's
that's
one of them? You name me a home that's that way.
the house that I live in right now.
I don't know where you live.
We live on 645 Marshall Street.
Still don't know where that's at.
It's right next to Robinson Manor.
Which side?
This
On
side.
Robinson Manor, right next to Robinson Manor, on the side
House
closer
on
to the
this side,
city.
one house on the other side.
And closer to the city.
That duplex right on
Okay.
River, that first one on the.
How is that contributing?
The house on Race Street. Because it would have been a historic home, I mean, it
That was
is.
not historical.
What's your definition of a historical home? It was built in
It has
like,
to be contributing, and that's not a contributing into the history.
it's been here since the 1800s.
There's a difference between old and historical.
I agree with that.
That's old.
And had it been kept up, it would have been
Still been
historical.
old. See, there's a difference, Roger, between being historical and old.
That it was one of the problems of
agree
the
with that.
HDC is
Yeah.
that they didn't even understand that they had those stars there for a reason. And that it wasn't just, oh, we're gonna mark it, it was to give it priority, different levels of priority of preservation. And that's been always the issue in there is some HDC commissions, depending on who's all on the board, were very strict with properties that probably didn't need to be strict with. And it has caused us a bad taste in the mouth of some people that live in the historic districts. Where they go, I got a bad taste in my mouth because I was trying to do the right thing, trying to maintain my property. Go and say I want to change to vinyl because the wood's all just rotting away. And they tell me no. They tell me I have to be wood. I go look up cost of wood. I go, I can't afford that. So I guess it'll leave it. That's part of the issue that we have is we've been so inconsistent in applying this, and it's across so many broad properties that it becomes unmanageable at, I think, the size it is. And if anything, it has to be really snipped back.
So we just wad it up and throw it away.
Well, we gotta look at the choices. You got the choice of
Wad
cutting
up
it
and
way
throw away, 'cause
back, getting
that's
rid
what
of
they
certain
wanna do.
districts, and saying these districts are non-contributing districts in the whole, so we're just not even gonna say you're gonna have to get a conformance certificate to do updates. You just gotta get your normal building permits. And that's something that we have to look at, and there's plenty in the community that don't want that extra layer. And you talked about, well, some of the people that are on the HDC live in the district, so they're just allowing things because they wanna allow things. You could say the same if they were outside the district. Now I have this outside people telling me I gotta do something with my property and I have no say on it. Nobody within my district is even on this board. And so they don't
Damned if
understand the
you,
plight.
Damned if you don't. So I mean, it's either way, Peter.
I think,
You have to just, and I see that I'm in the minority here, so I mean, that's me. So I mean, I'm able to live with my decision as long as you guys are able to live with your decision.
I was
It's fine
more,
by me.
I was more for really restricting it down to just those select properties and eliminating a lot of the other properties that are in the
What I was
district.
just saying.
That's exactly kind of what I'm saying is these are historically significant, these aren't. We just have way too many insignificant
Exactly.
ones and it makes it very hard to manage because they'll come in and they'll ask for something and they'll
And
say,
that
well,
can
you gotta
be-
go to this standard and everybody's at this higher standard and it's like, well,
That can be done with what we have right now.
so. That's kind of where I'm at on it.
I'm also for reducing the districts. I have been since this conversation started years ago. And in my mind, frankly though, it seems a lot less burdensome to take the 400 off and then add the ones that are currently historically accurate back. We can get back into a district, get back into CLG status. I mean, I mentioned at that meeting, even if we just have some of our buildings, our public buildings in that. And then a select few that we feel are actually
If that's
historically
what you're going to do, I have no problem with that. You are still contributing and having contributing historical properties. There are properties that should be contributing yet, and they are just falling apart. And one at the bottom of Ely Street Hill, Hartger Winter's old house. That's up there, and the guy's got fascia board that's falling apart and everything else. And he isn't, even if you make him an non-conforming, he still isn't gonna fix it. You've got that in there too. So, that's what I mean. You've got check marks that aren't gonna be able to be checked.
And I guess for me, the hard thing too is that there's a lot of residents in the community that don't want that anymore. And whether,
When David had his thing going on there, he had 7 couples that came to those things out of 400 homes. 7, and you can't tell me that that is a majority of that group.
No,
And
but I
they're
think
making their
that,
decision off 7 people.
but I think that's the point. That's how many people really cared about it and were passionate about it, Bill. Was the 7 couples, you know, the other 390.
I remember
Weren't.
right, then we'd also send out surveys at one point. So we
A few
pulled back
years
those
ago,
surveys
we
too and
did.
give you those to you. I don't know if Bill was ever privy, because I think that was before his time. So we have done surveys to the district and a whole, just to kind of ask questions.
Well, I've said my piece.
Then I guess it goes down to who's going to say this is contributing and this is non-contributing. Because we don't have the staff to do that, we don't have a committee that's willing to do that. You know,
Yeah.
Who did it the first time?
John Paul was the,
Yeah, and you had George Babcock, and you had some other people that went around town and did that.
I'd have to look at the survey. The survey says who all did it in the historic book, the one wonderful book that marks all the properties. I know he was the head of it, and then there's a couple others that are all listed in that document at the beginning.
So the survey, I have it up in front of me. It was led by Sanborn Ringliga Associates, which was probably an architecture firm out of Kalamazoo at the time. And we can dig in deep to find out. You typically have to have a certified historic preservation architect to do that work. There is a community group, but there's always a knowledgeable person. So you don't run into what's historic or old or not. The frustration that I have is when people say it's a simple house, therefore it's not a historic house. That's blatantly false.
Under the state rules, you don't have to have a historic, you don't have to hire somebody that's an architect that's not in the 19, whatever PA Act it is.
Yeah.
That's what even Chippo was saying, was it can be just community
It could
led.
just be community. I would encourage to have someone who is well-versed in historic preservation to lead that discussion. Lean on experts, lean on engineers when you're designing a machine, that kind of stuff. I believe in my email, I said we're working with the city attorney to see if we can develop an ordinance that meets, what the HDC recommended. We still have 2 vacancies on the HDC. When you had the meeting a year and a half ago and this room was filled, everybody in that room was invited to apply to be on the HDC. We received 0 applicants. I believe it was Chairman Gionis Walker Eddy mentioned he never saw those people come to any of the regular HDC meetings. They never called him or stopped him. He's very visible in town. He's always out and about, so it's not like he's hard to see. Eventually, a decision's gonna have to be made on how to proceed, council, and staff will go in the direction you wanna go.
And I feel with the demolition verbiage that was in there, like protecting those specific homes that are still in the National Registry, and, I mean, they're protected from demolition. I know that was a big concern when this came up last year. It was a concern again with our conversation at the last meeting, until we can figure something out. I mean, they hadn't had applications for how many months too, so it's.
And like the county, they just enacted a per diem and a mileage. Obviously, mileage isn't an issue for us, but if you have a lack of people, there used to be a stipend for it. And maybe that should be put back into place.
If you did it for that committee, you'd have to do it for all of them.
We just
I don't
redacted
think
that
that's
for the 2
necessary.
committees that were being paid, like, within the last year or 2. This has just been such a circuitous discussion.
It
It's,
has, and we just keep going round and round and round in circles, so it's frustrating.
Part of the issue is that, and I think we're seeing, there's really no good answer.
And I think that, yeah,
And there's no easy answer.
Yep. So I guess it's something we still need to think about and, or
I mean, do we
see
want
what
staff
Joel.
to do what they were planning on doing
He
through
was
that?
gonna do the ordinance or get with a lawyer.
Yeah,
and
so,
just-
yeah, so
okay,
the city attorney and I right now are in communication about how that ordinance could look.
Okay,
His communication today is, I gotta see if this is even a valid ordinance.
okay,
Can cities actually tell someone you can't demo their structure
okay,
based on the district? He goes, I haven't heard that. So I explained what we did in Holland with an infill ordinance, where if you wanted to build a house in the central neighborhoods outside the historic district, you had to build it to a certain standard, not the building code, but appearance and architectural detail. And I don't know why we can't do a flip side of that, which is if you want to demo one, you got to get approval. So we're looking into it, and we'll have something hopefully to you guys within the month.
okay, all right. Okay, thank you, Joel. Delora, do you have anything else? Thank you very much. Bill, Dave, do you have anything else for roundtable?
I just wanted to let council know that I applied for and was appointed to a position on the Allegan County Solid Waste Planning Committee. That was a call out for members to join, and so I thought that was an interesting one for personal reasons, and I applied. And we'll have our first meeting February 28th. I've already received the plan as well as an application for a new development and read those. So I'm looking forward to that.
Way to go, good job. Mike, do you have anything for roundtable? Peter? Raj?
Nope.
I have one thing. I was asked by one of the pickleball nooners when we were gonna allow them to go back into the Griswold and play pickleball for the rest of the winter.
Thank you for relaying that message.
Okay, are we going to?
Yeah, I would say that's up for discussion right now. As council is aware, we had a cardio drumming class that was using the Griswold free of charge in the basement. And then we had two groups of pickleball groups, the noon group from the county, and then a Monday night or Wednesday night and a Saturday morning group. And then we've had a third person come and ask if they could get keys to the Griswold to do pickleball because they're not invited to play with those two groups. And the cardio drumming class, even though they were in the banquet hall, left their trash in the balcony, broke the door twice. And we just ran into some issues in the month of December where I made a call for the keys to come back and give us a month to regroup as staff and figure out a plan forward. Parker and Ryan have been working on that issue. Our goal is to get them back in. I'm of a mindset that I'd like to see some kind of policy that says, these are the open hours at the Griswold for pickleball. And it's like drop-in. And we don't play, we don't pick winners and losers in this process, and so instead of a key being handed out, we just unlock it, let people in, and we lock it back up when it's done. It's something we're considering. Ryan is doing some price checks on some key codes on the doors. I think we shared this a little bit with the asset group before we took a little break during January, and now we're into February. So,
The cardio drumming isn't there anymore though, is it?
correct, because we
They-
took the keys.
They move, yeah,
Yeah.
okay. All right. Thank you. I was just asked about that, so I said I will find out. All right, if there's nothing else for roundtable, let's move on down to number 4, which is discussion regarding the 2023 and 2024 city council goals.
All right, I will kick this off.
Thank you.
So early January, you guys met here on a Friday night and a Saturday, and you listed your individual goals. Michaela has typed those up, and they are on the wall behind us on the sheets of paper. In front of you is a roll of stickers, and each council member should have a different color sticker. We have to get to the point where we prioritize what projects you guys want us to focus on next year, the direction you want to go. We recommended maybe doing this in a special meeting, but we ended up doing it on a study session, which is where we are tonight. So my recommendation is, since you've already discussed those goals a little bit, we can go around and go over the goals one more time. We can walk up there and stand there. The mic won't work for our YouTube recording, but that will be okay. And then we can have each council member take 5 stickers and place 5 stickers on the goals they'd like to do. And that way we can start prioritizing our focus. Questions, dialogue, conversation?
I can only use 5 stickers, but I get a whole roll.
Yeah, I apologize for that. I should have thought ahead.
And it's like, boy, I could put one everywhere.
Exactly. I am going to recommend or request that you only use 5 for the sake of
I was gonna use a whole
ease. How's that? I mean, is that okay with the council?
Yeah, that's fine with me, yeah.
I mean, and if you do have questions about one of those goals, because there's been a couple weeks, I'd encourage you guys to ask about the wording of those, but those were verbatim from the different council members. Michaela typed those up.
I have one question on the it says look for funding for Downtown Streetscape, Phase 2.
Phase 2.
So,
Peter Hanse came up with that, I believe, correct, Peter?
So phase 2 would
so-
be, we have here, because we had a whole streetscape plan that included other streets than the ones we're doing. So that's why I'm saying phase 2.
so hold on, this is not for Phase 2 that we seen at DDA.
Correct. No.
Okay, I was gonna say, hold on,
Yeah,
wait
no,
a minute,
no.
if we don't even have money for Phase 2, what are we doing?
Yes.
Okay,
Part
And
2.
Part
Part
two.
1 and part 2. yeah.
Gotcha.
Phase 2
Okay,
of
good. I'm
part
good with
1
that
is
then. All
Locust,
right.
yada, yada.
okay.
Good catch.
I had a quick question. We were talking about,
Oh,
It's,
that section.
so it's a different
Okay,
part.
got it now.
so we had discussed mainly like carrying over our goals from this year. So these are in addition to the held over goals?
Oh, good idea.
So those are not up there. We do have those on the pictures when we took the notes from the previous meeting. So we just plan on keeping those in the hopper.
So kind of just following like the breakdown, the 1, 2, 3,
Yeah.
infrastructure, economic, and community, but just
Yeah.
adding, okay,
So you'll be prioritizing the new goals.
perfect.
So are we just gonna go mark them, or? I was just figuring we were gonna go mark them on the wall and then come back down and discuss what we've kind of marked and.
That would be good.
Whenever you're ready, I guess, right? Go mark away.
Yes.
Yeah, put your dots. Maybe I count those out for you today. came in, Joel turned the air up because he said it was set at 68 degrees in here.
All right, we're gonna see if this cordless mic works. We haven't used it in 3 years, I think, since we had our damn meetings back in 2019 or 2018, so 2019. So it works, which is good. Hopefully Ryan's getting it on the live feed. All I'm gonna do is just summarize your stickers, the counts and so forth. So on this one, infrastructure maintenance plan, probably more specifically, develop maintenance project costs. Got 4, which is a lot. Look for funding for downtown streetscapes for the upcoming phases of our downtown, which is Trowbridge, Water, Chestnut, and Walnut. That received 1. Ordinance enforcement, start the rental inspection program. That received 4. And then start working with school properties, elementary school property development as the Allegan Public Schools moves forward with their single elementary plan over off Sherman. That received 2. Develop a how-to kit for block party, received 1. Neighborhood branding, received 2. Girl Scout property, received 1. That's the Girl Scout property we own off Wolcott over in the Riverside neighborhood. The River Walk loop in conjunction with MDOT, and then secure the 60 acres from Payroll is something we're looking into. This is land that's just east of the industrial park. I have 2 on the River Walk. Thank you. And if you need me to repeat or slow down or ask questions, feel free to speak up.
2 on the 60 from Perigo as well?
4.
4, okay, so that's a big, okay, thank you.
And we'll take pictures of all of this too. Expense classification, when we do our budget and we make our expenses known, mandatory, priority, or discretionary funding, that received 1. Becoming a carbon neutral, be more eco-friendly, that received 1. Discuss recycling millage. This is through the county, so I believe this is joining up with the county's existing program. That received 1. Working on business development, that received 4. This really talked about the downtown, concerns with the downtown improvement project effects that's gonna happen there. And then explore a single trash hauler for the city, that is 3. And then figure out the basement at City Hall, that received 2. So the ones that received 4, our infrastructure maintenance plan, ordinance enforcement, starting the rental inspection program, the acquiring more land for industrial development, which currently Payroll owns 60 acres adjacent to our industrial park, came up high, and business development came up high with those 4. And then when we hopped to 2 or 3, the only 3 I believe we got was the single hauler idea. And then the 2s included figuring out the basement at City Hall, River Walk loop in conjunction with MDOT, school properties, and neighborhood branding. And I believe that's what I have. Questions?
I feel like some of these can just be like incorporated into what we have now. For instance, like under 3, like the review, update, and improve levels of compliance to city ordinances. We could almost somehow wrap maybe that rental inspection program into that. And then like the land, there seems to be a lot of dots or support for land, like the Girl Scout property, the 60 acres, school properties. If we could somehow create language that it's just about available land usage or development. kind of encapsulate those.
Yeah. Any other questions or?
I'd just like to elaborate a little bit on the expense classification, because I can definitely understand why people wouldn't be worried about that as like a top 5 priority for the city, because it's a pretty, I guess, lower level goal. But what I'm picturing in my mind is if you think about each fund, so you'd have general fund, local streets, major streets, water, sewer, you'd have an expected revenue on one side, and then on the other side, for each fund, it would be a list of the mandatory expenses, meaning like payroll, bond payments, stuff that we know we have to spend on, prioritized spending, which would be like council prioritized, council approved projects, and then a discretionary line for each fund. And I think that would be really helpful. I know it would be helpful for me in understanding how money is getting allocated and kind of the big picture outlook for our budget. And again, I understand that not being like a high priority community goal that would be super impactful, but just for our process, I'm curious, do other people find value in that?
It would probably be helpful as we look through budgeted items and budgets, I mean, just to help us see it more clearly.
I think that is something probably that we could just internally ask Tracy about and see if there's some type of, something she can do in the accounting program, some report possibly, that she can furnish us that might have that information on it already.
And my suggestion would be like just an administrative direction, like to see if we
Yeah,
can get a little bit
because
more of
it's
that information.
probably something in the accounting system that might trigger that.
I agree. It doesn't seem like it needs to be a goal, but I wanted to bring it up during budget planning because that's where we're at right now. So, I mean, if there's council support for that sort of overview, I think I would find value in it.
Personally, if I saw something that was marked discretionary in a government budget, it would be,
Because in,
it's not our
we
place to
have,
discretion.
we have that in our, like the water and sewer where they have, what are they called? Reserved fund and restricted and non-restricted, you know.
Again, I'm thinking there's mandatory costs that are gonna come out of each fund, payroll, bond payments, insurance, things like that, that are sort of like, okay, we know this chunk of money for this fund is already spoken for. And then there's gonna be a chunk of money that is going to be allocated towards things that council has prioritized, streetscape, other major projects.
So,
And then there's a whole chunk of money that gets allocated throughout the year that you would call discretionary. And for each fund to see clearly even how we classify different expenses.
so it'd be more like, this is the operating expenses versus this is the capital improvements, because typically what we're approving is capital improvement or
improvements
capital
separate
repairs.
Anyway,
But operating would be like the electricity to run the water treatment plant, the gas to heat it, the payroll. We know all those up front. And you're just saying, this is the bare minimum just to run the water department. This is what we have left that is,
separated out.
we prioritize our spending from, of anything else for improvements, for just capital improvements or for repairs. That's how much is left in this, in a year, in a budget year, that is not part of just running expenses. That could be helpful from just a high view to say, this is how much we have to allocate
Right.
in the water or sewer or in whatever fund that we're looking at, or in the city hall budget, to say, this is the bare minimum to run.
So what I would say with this item is that maybe this is something we ask Joel when Tracy's back in. Maybe she could come to a meeting and we could have this on an agenda, maybe for discussion, so that she can see exactly what maybe we're looking for,
Sure.
you know, as opposed to a city goal, like you said.
Okay, yeah,
Okay.
that makes sense.
So we can talk it over with Tracy and see, she may know exactly what you're asking for and have something available.
Sure.
Does that sound good?
Thanks.
Thanks, Dave. Anything else anybody's got? Roger? You always got something. Not to call you out, but you always. Peter, anything on the goals for you?
Okay, so that's quite a few of them that we have up there, and if it's in addition to the current, I guess, like you said, to possibly reword some to make them into one goal, like property development, business development. Or do we need a second round to cut these down or not?
So what staff would plan on doing right now is the ones with 4 and 3 stars, we would massage them into what our existing stuff is, bring that as a draft for, council to review and adopt at your next meeting. Or discuss during the study session, and then if you like it, adopt it during the regular meeting,
Sounds good?
similar to how we did it last year.
Perfect. Yep. Thank you, Joel. Okay. Next on the agenda is the review of the council agenda. Did we have any change? We don't have any changes or anything on that I heard about. We're good to go, like it is? All right, thanks. Anything else? All right, with nothing else, I'm going to go ahead and adjourn this meeting at 6:29. We will reconvene at 7 o'clock for the regular meeting. 7 o'clock. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Michaela, would you like to take a roll call, please?
Sure. Councilmember Zeter,
Present.
Councilmember Hanse,
Present.
Councilmember Andrus. Councilmember Redding,
Here.
Councilmember Morgan,
Present?
Mayor Pro Tem Byrd,
Here.
and Mayor Galloway.
Here,
You have a quorum.
thank you. At this time, if we could all stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. Next on our agenda is the approval of agenda. 4A, approval of the regular council meeting agenda for February 13th, 2023.
So moved.
Support.
It has been moved and supported. All in favor, please signal by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next, the approval of minutes. 5A, approval of the study session minutes from January 23rd, 2023 council meeting. Did we see any, anybody get any changes, or anybody have anything?
I make a motion to approve the study session minutes as presented.
Support.
It has been moved and supported. All in favor, please signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Same sign. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. 5B, approval of the regular meeting minutes from January 23rd, 23. Okay.
I so move.
Support.
It has been moved and supported. All in favor, please signal by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. 5C, approval of the joint City Council and Historic District Commission minutes from January 31, 2023 meeting. No changes?
I move to approve.
It has been moved and supported. All in favor, please signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next on the agenda is number 7, the first reading of ordinances and scheduling of public hearings. 7A is the first reading and scheduling of a second reading and public hearing for the February 27th, 2023 council meeting for ordinance 506 to determine the constable position at the end of the current constable's term. Joel, you gonna take this?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, so this evening you are going to receive, just for our first reading, as you know, with all ordinances, we have 2 readings. This is our first reading. An ordinance to terminate the constable position at the end of the current constable's term. We've reached out to our city attorney, even though the constable's position is an unpaid position and listed in our city charter. State law affords home rule cities, which Allegan is, to pass an ordinance to make slight changes to that charter, one being the removal of a, unpaid position. The constable's term is ministerial and, it's action and duties. Charlie is our current constable, and we thank him for, his service. He has informed the mayor that he doesn't plan on rerunning. One reason we are requesting that we remove this position is it is the only position that will be up for election this fall, and it will save the city significant money if we don't move forward with that election. And then all of our elections now will be just on the general election schedule, which will be, beneficial, to us both from an operations and cost perspective.
Okay, thank you. Need a motion on this? Or just the first reading?
Yep. So it is a first reading, so you do need a motion to schedule the public hearing for the second meeting.
I move to schedule a second reading and public hearing regarding ordinance 506 on February 27th, 2023.
Support.
It has been moved and supported. All in favor, please signal by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. 7B is the first reading and scheduling of a second reading and public hearing for the February 27, 2023 council meeting for ordinance 507 to amend chapter 29 of the Code of Ordinances. Joel?
Yeah, I'm going to handle this one as well. Water Utilities Director Doug Swears is in the audience if you have specific questions. Again, this is a first reading of an ordinance. You will be scheduling the second reading for your February 27th meeting. This is an amendment to our Water Utility Ordinance, Chapter 29. Council, you will recall, I believe it was last summer, we had council adopt a whole new water ordinance, as I call it. Since that time, we have identified that we have the possibility of people that can bypass our meters if they do some plumbing work. We do not want that to occur unless it's at life-saving institutions. And then also, we'd like to identify that you cannot get free water service, through our system. So we had to identify that as well. So those are two of the amendments there, and then the final one is fire suppression connections will not be charged for water use during a fire event. We just want to be clear about that in our water ordinance as well. So these are minor amendments that we need to make to our water ordinance, as I'd like to refer to it. We're requesting that you receive the first reading this evening, which we just went over, and schedule the public hearing and second reading for February 27th. Any questions?
Get a motion, please?
Make a motion that we schedule a second reading for February 27th, was that right? 2023, on this proposed ordinance.
Support?
It has been moved and supported. All in favor, please signal by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next on the agenda is number 9 for public comment. This is items that are not on tonight's agenda. Okay, seeing none, we'll move on down to number 10, which is written petitions and reports from special committees. 10A is a request from Allegan Folklife. Joel, you gonna take this?
Yeah, I believe Leah is in the audience. Leah is in the audience. She's going to speak to you tonight under her request.
Right. I just would like to ask the council to waive the fees for Mahan Park for the concerts. It's been a rough year trying to get funds to pay for everything. We're still out collecting. And I just want to let you know that these concerts are bringing in a ton of people. We do the little winter concert series, the Cabin Fever down there. We tracked last year. We brought in people from 32 different cities came to those concerts. I see the same people coming down to the gazebo, and I'm sure you're bringing in a lot of people, concerts that Parker does. But I was pretty surprised. The other thing I wanted to talk to, and Parker and I have talked about this, I'd like to work a little bit closer with Parker, and we'd like to advertise for the city too. We did last year. We put it on our flyer, said that the city supported us. And I think that Parker and I can work really well together. I announce his concerts at mine, and he announces mine at his. That way we get a lot more coverage, and I just think it's good for everybody. These concerts have been great. And the concert we did last year at the same time that Tantric did theirs, we just held it. It turned out wonderful. It was a great night to be in Allegan. There were people going back and forth from Tantric to the gazebo, and from the gazebo to Tantric. It was just a really nice night, and town was full. So just kind of wanted to let you know about that. But I am asking that we waive the fees for the park if possible.
Thank you, Leah. Any discussion, council?
I had thought we had approved this last year because we had a discussion about if Brady Street was closed and you couldn't use Mahan Park, that we would perhaps allow you to use JC Park. But I mean, I'm in support of that, but I thought that we had already taken it on that, but.
That discussion was brought to city council at the time, but with the construction schedule undetermined at that point in time, we were also over a year in advance of the concert schedule. It was the council decided at the time to table that discussion, to table the waiving of fees until this time of year. Now that we've had our meeting, our pre-construction meeting, we kind of have a better idea of the scope of the project and how it's going to affect that area. Leah mentioned that she and I have had conversations leading up to this meeting, and we talked about what that will look like, the construction going on in that area surrounding Mayhem Park. The park itself will be accessible when the concerts start. The Brady Street will still be under some construction at the start of the concert season, but should be wrapped up. The timeline right now is July, so it'll have a full month of the concert series being undisturbed.
Any more questions?
I move we approve the request from Allegan Folklife with the caveat that you do list the city of Allegan as a sponsor.
Support.
It is moved and supported. All in favor, please signal by saying aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. 10B is request from Allegan County Fairgrounds. Joel?
Yeah, Sari Miller, the executive director for the Allegan County Agricultural Society, which oversees the fairgrounds, is on vacation, so she sends her apologies. She could not be here this evening. You have what I call their annual request to place several signs around the city, as well as receive approval for up to 6 concerts throughout the year, and the permission to violate our noise ordinance and go to midnight, I guess is the phrasing I would use there. This is a regular request. I think this letter is just cut and paste and the date is changed at the top. I've seen it all 6 years of being a city manager here. In addition to the signage, I did get an email from her earlier or late January. She's probably going to have to work with us on detour signs during the construction in 2024, really, with the roundabout for next year. So what I'm telling everyone is the next 2 years, it's just going to be kind of hinky getting around Allegan. And as a city, we're going to be flexible and working with people on signage in the right of way and along those lines. So I did want to share that with you, that what you're approving, you'll see signage in here in locations, but staff's going to work with, all institutions and businesses as we try to figure out how to move people through Allegan during really next year when M89 and the roundabout is under construction.
Okay, thank you, Joel. Is there any questions? Could I get a motion, please?
Yep, so moved.
Support.
It has been moved and supported. All in favor, please signal by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next on the agenda is 10C, a request from Elizabeth Decot. Deco, I'm sorry. Elizabeth is in the crowd.
So this is regarding one of the city ordinances. Can I give you guys some copies of other ordinances for your reference?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Number 1.
So I would like to request and discuss the amending Article 16-13, subsection A, in one of the zoning ordinances for Allegan City. It reads, "No animals, livestock, or fowl, or structures of the, for the same other than common household pets shall be permitted is a use in the city unless otherwise specified in this ordinance." So my amendment that I would like to make is for allowing non-commercial owning of fowl in the, at least the R1 areas of Allegan City. My husband and I are gardeners, and chickens would not only provide us a very healthy, consistent protein, but it would also help us mitigate insect damage and eliminating the weeds without the use of heavy toxic weed killers or insect repellent. So we're also finding it a little bit more necessary to have other options of taking care of ourselves with the rising cost of living, the dramatic food price increases, keeping chickens for their eggs can be as vital as having a garden. Since the R1 areas are residential, the amendments that I'd like to make to this would be to include the permission of fowl at these residences with the stipulations that offer respect for our neighbors and keep those chickens healthy. Some of the stipulations that I would like to see addressed would be keeping of chickens would be on a non-commercial basis, mitigating any kind of potential adverse impacts in the surrounding properties. The keeping of chickens shall be exclusively used by the people occupying the property as a locally grown food source. The outdoor slaughtering of chickens is prohibited. The chickens would be in a covered enclosure and must be kept in the covered enclosure or an adjoining fenced enclosure at all times. The chickens may be allowed to roam outside of the covered or fenced enclosure if within a fully fenced side or rear yard and supervised by a person in the immediate vicinity. All covered enclosures or fenced enclosures shall be located in the rear yard and shall be no closer than 5 feet to any property line of an adjacent property and shall be located no closer than 25 feet to a residential structure on an adjacent property. And the area where the chickens are kept shall be neat and clean at all times. These are examples that other cities have used in their ordinances, and that's in the packet that I gave you all. There are references to the cities of Holland, Kalamazoo, and in Hudsonville, and then Georgetown Township. So if you guys would like to look those over and then consider this, I would appreciate it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Elizabeth. So, at this time, council, do we have any discussion on this?
I know we had
talked about it
discussed that study session, and it sounded like a directive to staff to look into changing the ordinance.
Sure.
Is that the understanding?
Yeah,
I wrote the Holland one when I was there, so, yeah.
okay.
Okay.
All right, so we're gonna work on that and see what we can come up with, okay? All right, thank you. Next on the agenda is 10D, which is a request from Art in the Garden.
I was thinking someone else was here, which would be fine. The good news about coming up to the lectern is now I can actually read everybody's names, so that's nice. Art in the Garden would like to request authorization for temporary sign to be put up on the airport city property for the show, which is April 15th. We did get approval for that last year. The Allegan Area Arts Council sponsors this event. We would use the temporary metal stakes to hold the banner and would take them down on April 16 or 17. I can talk to Joel as to right-of-way requirements if we are approved. We'd like to put them up by April 1. Thank you for considering this. And I have one other thing, because there's no availability down at the bottom of the hill, we have 2 banners. We would like to be able to put up another temporary banner using the metal stakes again. Would it be possible to put it up down in that area, but back a ways, or does anybody have any ideas where we might be able to put it up? Besides Bill's house, but he doesn't get enough traffic.
I couldn't see it anyways.
That's what I mean.
How would it work out by the welcome sign on 89 coming into town?
From Otsego?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that would
if
be an
there's
ideal
area
place for
there,
us, because
I
we've got
don't-
it covered out on 222.
Yeah, I don't know if there's area there or not.
So if I heard you correct, Sandy, it's April 1st is when the signs are gonna go in?
That's, yeah, I mean, they could go in sooner, but our event is April 15th.
Okay, so April 1st is the deadline to get the signs in the ground, more or less. I'd recommend council approve for the airport. We did that last year. We didn't have any issues. And direct staff to look at other areas. The welcome sign out on M89 coming in from Plainwell. That's our water utility. I think we own that parcel.
That's actually Consumers Energy right away.
Okay, Consumers Energy right away, but we have a lift station right behind it.
Yes.
Thank you, Doug. We'll figure something out. I'm gonna wanna probably have a conversation with the Public Spaces Commission, DDA, and the city council about just the placement of these temporary signs that we approve occasionally throughout. The banner signs, as we call them, at the bottom, or the junction of M89, M40, and Hubbard. All three of those are just gonna have one big banner that says "Shop Downtown, open during the construction." If you look over my shoulder at the goals, one of the big things was making sure we do everything possible for the businesses downtown to support them during our construction project. And so we've told people we just aren't putting any other private signs up on those banners. Starting April 1st. And that's what Sandy was talking about. She kind of ran into a little bit of a buzzsaw with our dates there.
That's fine.
If we approve this one, we're gonna have lots of other ones that just ask, and then do we get into a sign clutter? I'm not sure. So I think there's gonna be a larger discussion, but maybe we can work with Sandy on the other locations. The airport, we had no issues last year, so we'll have no
Right.
issues this year at all. Maybe we
Well,
can find
and-
some other
yeah,
locations.
And I'd be glad to, you guys talk about it, decide, and Joel and I can talk.
Yep.
And see what we should do.
And then we'll get something, if it's gonna be in the city right away, we'll get it back in front of you, before April. We have 3 meetings before then.
Because there's the
Right.
welcome sign up as you go past the high school as well, so.
Yeah,
I don't know if we own the property there, so you can look
We
at all
do.
those.
I shouldn't speak so
Oh,
quick.
that's a possibility,
That's
too.
where the MDOT and the city right away kind of merged together. So, but we were able to relocate our welcome sign there because it was in front of the discount grocery store location.
So I'm fine with approving the airport sign, but council, what do you think? Just let Joel use his discretion, work with Art in the Garden, and let him put a sign somewhere else. It don't have to come back to us
If
as
we
far
can
as
find
I'm
a place, hopefully.
Yeah, I appreciate the discretion. I'll still inform you on the decision I make.
Well, that's fine. but
Okay.
We don't need to come back to us, I don't think, but, okay. Can we
Okay.
get a motion to approve, please?
So moved.
It has been moved and supported. All in favor, please signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed,
Thank you
same
very
sign.
much.
Motion carries. Thanks, Sandy. Okay, next on the agenda is number 11, reports from boards, commissions, and city offices. 11A, city boards, commissions, and area agencies. 11A1, Allegan Fire District, January 25th meeting. Joel?
Yeah, so occasionally the fire district drops off their meeting packet for council to receive as part of your regular meetings. They had a meeting January 25th. I happened to attend that meeting because they had a few city-related items on there. 2 updates to give you. We've come to an agreement on the streetscape conditions for fire access. More or less, you will not see any changes to how the road looks on Locust Street or the plaza on Trowbridge between Minnie's Restaurant and the Regent Arcade showroom. We are going to stripe 1 parking space in the parking lot between Water Street and the buildings on the east side of Locust, so the old City Hall parking lot, that little triangle. We're gonna stripe 1 space there for emergency vehicle access, and then we are going to put, since the city owns that parking lot, we are gonna put a condition on our deed to that property that another space will not be redesigned for parking, but will always be available for emergency use. So that's down where the trash cans are right now, and that curb cut is to the alley. Those are the 2 conditions Nick, asked, and I said, yeah, that works fine. So we came to an agreement there. The other one that kind of deals with your discussion earlier about code enforcement is I reached out to Nick Brink, the fire chief, to see if he would be willing to entertain the idea of the city contracting with the fire district to do rental inspections for the city. Rental inspections are life, safety, welfare. Firefighters are life, safety, welfare. So they kind of line up with one another. Nick has received it well. He presented it to their board. Their entire board was supportive of it. From the get-go, I've told Nick the only way this relationship's going to work is if it's financially feasible for the city and it's financially feasible for the fire district. We don't want to hurt either organization in implementing this process. So Nick and I are in the process right now of just putting together how the program would work. The city would oversee all the administrative actions. We'd schedule the appointments, more or less. We'd send like work orders over to them. They would go do the inspections, and we would restart the rental inspection program that went dormant in 2015, 2016, prior to my arrival, when the city transferred from Michigan Township Services to PCI for their building inspections. So it's going to be a heavy lift, but I think it's going to be cost effective, and it's going to, be beneficial to the city working with, a local organization instead of trying to contract out with somebody from Lansing or something to come in and do this work. Still a lot of work that has to be done with it, but those were the two big discussion points. I would applaud the fire district, especially, Chief Brink, when EMS lost their lease at the hospital. Nick reached out to them immediately and figured out a plan to have them, stationed at the firehouse here on Monroe, which is really beneficial to the city and city residents like myself to have, live EMS stations inside the city limits and not outside the city limits. So I enjoyed his leadership on that one there. And Patrick Morgan, just to remind council, you have two appointees that represent the city there. Patrick Morgan, who is a former council member here, and Rick Day are your two appointees to that. They have said if you ever want them to come and do a presentation on the fire district, they're more than willing to come speak. So I just lay that out there. They send their appreciation to council for the work you do and letting them serve on the fire district board.
Good. Okay, thank you, Joel. Next on the agenda is 11A.2, Historic District Commission from February 2nd meeting. Parker's going to take this?
Yeah, while my name is included on the agenda, Councilmember Zeter was present at the meeting, so his name is on the screen. So
Okay.
if he would like, I would gladly allow him to
Wondered that
recap the meeting for you.
Okay.
We approved the old iron bridge, windows and stuff there, so, and then we got into discussion of, what they, didn't want to change or, yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Mike. Next on the agenda is 11A.3, the Airport Advisory Board, February 6th meeting. Peter?
Yep, so we met last week, Monday. Went over the crack ceiling that we're gonna be working on, getting that completed. There was a tree update and some confusion on some trees over behind the credit union that have been removed that weren't part of our contract, and we don't believe our contractor did it. We're not quite sure who did it. So, looking into that, so we kind of asked our contractor if they did it. Some discussion about abandoning the grass runway. It's really contingent on when we survey the runways after the tree removals, if it's not compliant, which would not allow us to get our license, our full license, because we're on contingent license and we need to be on a full license in order to do our other projects out at the airport. So we didn't make any action on that or any recommendations. It was just brought to us, and we're still discussing if we need to do any action. Discussed again the deer at the airport. Still trying to get a hold of somebody. Doug's still trying to get a hold of somebody at the Department of the DNR to see if there's any way that we can have any type of permits for what would normally be considered nuisance deer that's used for like farms and others in order to control some of the herd, because there's been quite a few deer sightings on and around the runways, and it can be a quite tragic thing if a plane runs into a deer while they're landing or taking off. And since we don't have plans to put up or in our CIP for any type of fencing until I think 2024, 2025, it's down on our priority list. There's some discussion about somebody still looking to get some jet fuel at the airport. One of the people on the board looking if he is going to be looking and coming back to us possibly with a proposal for him to have a private bunker, a double-lined bunker that's and he'll have to come back and tell us all about it and how it meets the requirements. And that was about it.
Okay, thank you, Peter. Next on the agenda is 11A4, Downtown Development Authority from the February 8th meeting. And I'll go ahead and take this, and Parker can help me out if I get stuck. We had 2 applications come in for the Match on Main, the MEDC grant. One was from ATech for a new facade. Great looking pictures that they presented to us, and yeah, it is. Our thinking there is that is going to be one of our main buildings that people see coming into town eventually, and it would be great, particularly with the brick falling off the front there. And so he was one of the applicants, and then Dan and Aaron, which is the creative events building where the arcade is right now. They want to basically remove their outside and then eventually do some inside stuff. But those are the 2 applicants that the city is working on. And then the Downtown Improvement Project update, Parker just went through, told about the 3 phases, how they were laid out, that we're gonna plant 60 new trees. And that the lighting on the streets, Joel mentioned that when it was made, they were going to be adjacent to each other across the streets. With some study done, now they're going to be staggered across the streets. So I personally liked the looks of that better, but we'll see how it turns out. And then we also looked at a drawing for the sign about construction that was going to be over there where Joel was talking about, and Joel just kind of got laughed at by his artwork. So he went back to the drawing board. He's going to come up with something new, or probably Parker will help him.
Joel learned this lesson, and so did Parker.
Okay.
We're going to rely on people we did not. So real
All right.
quickly, during the Downtown Improvement Project, sorry, Mayor Galloway,
Oh, you're fine.
we're creating a logo and a tagline to, just reinforce, come downtown, come downtown, come downtown. What was created by staff with the help of a graphic designer was not well received by merchants or the DDA. So instead of trying to push our idea through, even though we think it's a well-designed logo and tagline, we are going to, we took a bunch of notes, and we're going to incorporate what we heard and bring back several options. And we're working with a couple of downtown merchants that have a design background and helping get something that they will have buy-in at the beginning.
And then the one other thing that we talked about was the trash and the recycle. That is a big discussion with the downtown lowdown meeting and the DDA. It's just, there's a lot of pieces that go into it as far as, the trash pickup and doing recycling, and so it's just a big discussion going on amongst a lot of people. And the business people are really concerned about the trash, and then the recycling is a big ordeal, like Joel mentioned, and I don't know if maybe everyone knows this, but if one little pizza box gets put into the recycling bin, pretty much everything in that bin is contaminated, or one little bit of oil gets put, can no longer be recycled. So it's a big deal to become a part of that recycling program, so. And I think that was about all we discussed, so.
Can I ask a quick question? Just on the Match on Main, the city can put 2 recommendations up, but only one can be chosen. Is that correct? Both of them can't be chosen by the state.
We don't know. 2 could be selected.
could be.
In the fall during this first round of funding. The city, the DDA submitted 2 businesses, and only one Allegan business was selected of the 2 that were submitted.
Okay.
And it appeared, when looking through all of the recipients, that 1 project per community was selected. That's not to say that 2 really good projects could both be picked from the same community, but we just didn't see that happen in the fall, so.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Okay, Next on the agenda, 11B. 11B1 is a request to approve accounts payable and payroll. Roger, please.
We have accounts payable in the amount of $1,839,139.72, and a payroll in the amount of $201,816.24, for a total disbursement of $2,040,955.96. Motion to approve?
I so move.
I'll support.
It has been moved and supported. All in favor, please signal by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next on the agenda, 11D is 11D1. Request to approve a 3-year contract extension for BioTech Agronomics. Doug?
Yes, this was brought to you last meeting in the pre-session to review. This is extending our contract with BioTech to continue removing the biosolids from the treatment plant and then land applying them at local farm fields.
Thank you, Doug. Is there any questions? Could I get a motion, a motion, please?
I move to approve the 3-year contract extension with BioTech Agronomics.
It has been moved and supported. All in favor, please signal by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thanks, Doug.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is 11F, City Manager and City Clerk. 11F1, request to adopt Resolution 23.03 to amend the operating hours of the Downtown Social District. Joel?
Yeah, so very quickly, the operating hours were approved at council's last meeting. We submitted the copy of the minutes to the Michigan Liquor Control Commission. They said thank you. However, a simple motion will not suffice. You need to do it in a formal resolution adopting the plan. So we have to come back to you and have you adopt the Resolution 2303, amending those hours, which is a motion that's already been made.
So do we need to remake the motion?
Yeah, for
Yeah,
the
so you have to make a
resolution.
motion to adopt Resolution 2303.
So I make a motion to adopt Resolution 2303 as written.
I support.
It has been moved and supported. All in favor, please signal by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next, 11F2, request to adopt Resolution 23.04 to alternate the state date from March Board of Reviews.
So very quickly, the Board of Review has to occur the second Monday in March per the General Property Tax Act, MCL 211.30. Due to scheduling with our Board of Review, we need to reschedule that to the Wednesday following the second Monday, which is allowed under state law if the local governing body approves via resolution a different date. So Resolution 2304 does just that. You will be approving the due date to be March 15th, the Wednesday following the second Monday of March.
Any questions?
I'll make a motion to adopt Resolution 23.04.
I'll support.
It has been moved and supported. All in favor, please signal by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next on the agenda is 11F3, request to adopt Resolution 23.05 to support 123Net's application for the Realizing Opportunities with Broadband Infiltrations Networks, better known as Robin, grant program towards Allegan County Broadband Wired Infiltration Expansion Project. This is kind of what Scott was talking to us about.
Correct. So in the,
Joel?
so in the pre-session, County Commissioner Scott Belton was here. He mentioned this resolution of support that he was asking the city to approve, even though our city is fully covered through access to high-speed internet. They're asking all local unit of governments to pass this resolution so they can build a case of strong support for expanding the network in their grant applications.
Thank you, Joel. Any questions?
Oh, I think this could be beneficial to the city as well, because if they expand the networks in the county, it would give us more access to higher speed. We're kind of actually low at 200 down or 10 up. That's kind of abysmal in a lot of communities now, so I'm fully supportive of this.
So can we get a motion?
So moved.
It has been moved and supported. All in favor, please signal by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next on the agenda is 11F4, acceptance of a Downtown Streetscape Project update report.
So I believe in December, we shared with you the template that we were going to use to update council on the downtown streetscape. We mentioned we would share that with you at the first meeting of each month during the study session. However, not sure how long the study session was going to go with the prioritization of your goals. We just added it to the end of this agenda, and you see it right here. Yeah, it's just a static report where we update what needs to be updated. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to staff on this, but this doesn't require any motion or anything. It's just a report that's being delivered.
Was there any questions on this?
Yeah, I see there's a breakdown of time for phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3 and 4 are sort of out a little bit, or at least phase 3. Is it possible to get a breakdown of costs for each of those phases? So that we can monitor as we're going through phase 1, how we're tracking and.
So probably not for the phases. What you have right there on page 142 of your packet is the payment history by month, and then our expenditures, where you have the agreement amount that's in the contract, so how much we agreed to pay for the different services, broken down by funds. And this is for, both phases in that project moving forward.
Both phases?
Yeah, for the whole project.
Yeah, because part of it's like the engineering cost is.
David, the reason I believe this is because it was bid as one project,
It was bid as
not
one
as in
project.
phases.
So we don't know the cost of the work that's happening in phase 1?
No, because the bottom line is what we approved. And that's how the contractor bid it.
That seems odd, because it's like distinct parts of work. You would think you would have
So,
some
no,
sort of.
because for instance, the sewer pipe, for instance, was bid as this, a dollar amount.
Yeah,
The water, this dollar amount. The sidewalks, this dollar amount, and it was for all the phases. So if you look at the original bid,
Like the engineering
quote.
costs and all that's just like the whole project, and they didn't go and line item it to these streets. The phases were kind of not even decided before we did the bidding. I don't remember us ever discussing which phase was happening first or second. This was something that was, the phases were in essence what's getting worked on first, because we just can't shut everything all down.
Joel or Parker, can you find that, the quote from Milbacher?
Yeah, I mean,
Just to put it up there to show, or
yeah,
not?
we
Is it
would not be able to
Okay.
do that with our system we have right here. but-
Okay, all right, okay.
But we do see, I looking down at the budget and the expenditures, we do see what we approved and where it's currently at. I think is what I'm seeing down there in the DTSS expenditures and the payment history. I think that's where we're gonna have monitoring on it. And if there's any overages, I don't think we've had any overages yet, have we?
No,
Because we still have our procurement that requires, what is it, above 10%?
10% of the total project.
And you said you were just gonna, of course, in these reports, tell us if there's something
Yep.
that's.
As we know, things are going to come up. I've already shared with you verbally that our immediate, or the change orders we know that are coming down are the installation of pedestrian bollards. We like to install those at the top of the riverfront, specifically along Hubbard. And then I also would like to do it on Brady as well. Instead of using sawhorses that people just move and drive around because they believe they have equal access to the riverfront during events. A bollard stops cars from going around. So, I mean, that's a common, practice. Yeah, we're gonna have to come back for approval.
On that side, are we gonna have to do something about those parking spaces that aren't technically the city's? Because we sold them along the side of the building that was supposed to be for a deck?
Yep. We'll have to cross that bridge when we get there, and we'll get there quick.
About that this weekend.
Yep. And we can have that conversation. That is an initial, change order that I know is gonna come out that wasn't in the original design.
Anything else? Okay. Moving on to 11F5, request to authorize the city manager to hire VC3 to be the city's information technology manager. Joel?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. This evening, I would like council to consider a purchase order from VC3 to become our IT managed service provider. Over the past year, we've had some serious setbacks, as my staff report has mentioned, with our current IT provider. We went out for bid after talking to several IT providers in West Michigan earlier this year. McIntyre Technologies submitted a bid. I believe it was around $90-some thousand is what they came in at. IT Right, which is a VC company, and within the next month, they will just be known as VC3, came in with a bid of $54,000 plus an initial one-time onboarding labor and documentation fee of $4,000 for a total of $58,000. I would say this has probably been something that's been in the making for 18 months or so, is when department heads started sharing some of their concerns with me. The initial concerns were minor, in my opinion. I can't print to a printer. Okay, we'll restart your computer, plug it in, after about 15 minutes, you could print again. They're like stubbing your toe kind of issues. More recently, they've become a lot more significant. Not having a firewall set up for our water treatment plant is a major issue. I looked out to the audience, Doug Spears is here. The police department not being able to scan in their paperwork to the court system, which is a typical job task on the weekend for the weekend shift, and then having to wait till Monday to carry it over has been, an issue. I have a handful of employees here at City Hall that can't print to certain printers, so we're having some major network issues. Cybersecurity has always been just a concern of mine. You hear about ransomware, you hear about local municipalities getting locked down or locked out of their systems. Fortunately, we haven't had those issues here. These are all things that VC3 can protect us and, help us become a better, organization. Right now, we do not have a reliable help desk system. We do not have 24-hour monitoring, and we don't have 365-day backup, where we can reach out to someone when we're having an issue. So our current budget can absorb the initial cost, and the upcoming budget will budget for this additional cost for this IT services. Something that's important is you saw in the information packet from VC3, they only work with municipalities. And that's important, that we work with a company that understands our needs, because our needs are different than, a small insurance office's needs. So they are lean certified through the state, so that's law enforcement information network certified, so they're fingerprinted and are allowed to get into the systems that, only police officers can get into to support. That's very important for our police chief and our police department. So with that, we're recommending that, council authorize me to, sign this. In my report, I mentioned within the first 3 months, they're going to do an analysis of our whole IT system and really try to help us right-size it, make it a little more efficient, more lean, in the number of computers we have plugged in everywhere. So we're looking forward to this company coming in. All the department heads have met the IT person coming in. We've received, the initial presentation from them. So we're comfortable with moving forward, and it's a recommendation from your leadership team that we go with this contractor. Any questions?
One would be, when they do this analysis, I'd like to see what their plans are for backup schedules and backups and how they're planning on protecting that, because I've had a friend whose company got ransomware. They had an IT company that was supposed to be doing backups and doing offline backups. They didn't in the end. So I'm very weary. It's trust but verify. I want to make sure that we're not just trusting that they're doing their job, that we make sure that they are actually doing that, because that is a very serious issue if you don't have a backup and then you have to pay the ransom because there's nothing else you can do. So I want to make sure we
Understood.
fully understand that they're doing the job they say they're
Yes.
going to do.
Any other questions? Is this going to affect our laptops, Joel?
No,
Just-
this isn't going to
'cause it's
affect your
just-
laptops.
Okay. All right, thank you.
And I believe there's just 3 of you that still have Chromebooks, correct?
I do. Is that the city? Yeah.
Okay, just 3 of you.
Could we get a motion, please, to authorize Joel?
So moved.
Support.
It has been moved and supported. All in favor, please signal by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next on the agenda is, the communications from city manager, council, and mayor, please. Doug, do you have anything?
Nothing tonight, Mayor.
Thank you. Michaela?
Yes.
All right.
I just wanted to remind everyone that let me know that they would like to go to the Tech Center open house. That is this Wednesday, from 11:30 to 1:30. So we will see you there.
We're just gonna meet out there, Michaela?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
That's the one across from the airport, right? That's what we're.
Yeah. Parker, do you have anything?
Nothing for me tonight.
Thank you. Joel, anything else from you?
Nothing for me tonight.
Thank you. Bill?
No, ma'am.
Thank you. David?
Nothing for me, thanks.
Thank you. Laura?
Got that shut.
Mike?
Nothing citywide, but happy Valentine's Day to everybody.
Peter?
Nothing for me.
Roger?
I got a lot to say. I'm just kidding, I don't have
Oh,
I know
what
you're
a
disappointed.
what a letdown. I have one thing to congratulate Carl and Carol Canales on their new baby.
Very nice.
So, everybody doing fine, I hear, so.
Yes.
I seen Carl walk by with one dog, so must be Carol was babysitting, so.
I do have one more thing to add, Madam Mayor, if you don't mind. Happy
Sure.
birthday to Michaela Kleehammer.
Oh, happy birthday. Good, okay. What a way to spend your birthday with us. All right, if there is nothing else, we are going to go ahead and adjourn this meeting at 7:53 PM. Good evening, everyone.